And we are recording. Not that Dale gives a shit, but I normally talk to the people beforehand for a couple of minutes, but I'm all booked up right now. Monday, January 5th, 2026 at 9:16 a.m. with Dr. Dale Comstock, who was guest number 50. He was one of the OGs. Guys, please go in the description. Please go grab his books, training, stem cells, exosomes, all that shit. Even nuclear facility, I guess, specialties. But obviously, so it's was it today's Monday, so Saturday morning woke up with all these like texts about Maduro, and naturally, and I've said this before a million times, like when anything happens, Butler shooting, the CEO getting dunced, the Cybertruck car bomb, it's I always just Dale's my Swiss Army knife. I just reach to Dale, and I also always get a lot of texts about like, are you having Dale on for this? So naturally, I texted you immediately, and you're in Bali, but you were like, I'm working, and my mind immediately is like, oh, Dale did it, and but I wanted to talk to you about it just because it's like I happen to know you, and there's a trillion speculation shows about it, but I mean, you were there at Modelo Prison, you kind of know the shit. You've done extremely VIP security. And I think they're talking about how young some of the Delta Force guys were, and I'm like, well, Dale was the youngest ever at the time, and all that stuff. So, just in general, I mean, your thoughts on it. I mean, it's I think as you always say, when it really comes from push comes to shove, you go to Delta, and it seems like that's what this is. So I'm going to shut up because you're the expert.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was amazing, right? So, and I always say this, I'm not trying to take nothing away from the SEALs and anybody else. At the end of the day, the unit, the U.S. government, the American citizenry has spent a lot of money developing that organization. Incredible amounts of money. When we talk about tier one, people throw that word tier one, right? Most people don't even know what tier one means. So first of all, a tier one asset, for example, a nuclear submarine would be considered a tier one asset, right? Certain aircraft are considered tier one assets. Why a nuclear submarine? Well, because actually a nuclear submarine is almost always on duty and on alert, right? And it's operating as if it's in a wartime mode, right? And so the unit's the same way. We're always operating in a wartime mode, even in peacetime. We are training for war, and we're training with the same intensity as we would in combat. Like, everything is live fire, live explosives, very little simulated, and because we're tier one, we get wartime funding, just like a nuclear submarine gets that type of funding. Tier two would be something like Green Berets, um, some of the Ranger battalions, some of the SEAL teams, most of the SEAL teams except for SEAL Team 6 are all considered tier two. And then you have like tier three, which would be like the 82nd infantry companies, stuff like that, right? So there's different levels. It's basically predicated on the tier level that you're on is predicated on your war footing and funding. So now, as I said, the government has put a lot of money in that organization because, um, well, it is the premier counterterrorist unit in the world, bar none. And so, when you look at the level of training that, Delta operators get, there's no expense spared. I'll just tell you that. No expense spared. And a lot of the training may seem like some boondoggle, but everything's got relevance, right? I can't go into all the trainings, but a lot of it doesn't look like it has any type of military application, but actually it does, right? So even if we went off, when we did something just seemed kind of sexy to go do, like I don't know, just pick something out, like go learn how to drive a Formula 500 race car. How's that relevant, right? Well, actually, it's relevant because just learning how to drive a race car, right, at high speeds, technical driving, threshold braking, shaving the apex, see, all this stuff starts mattering, especially when you start doing real operations that might require some type of driving. Okay, so and so it's no surprise to me that the unit was called on to do this mission because when you think about it, had they failed this, had they failed this, let's just say on the ingress, something happened. A couple of birds got shot down. Now we've got another Mogadishu scenario, right? So now we've got drama. Or let's just say everything went perfect right up until, the unit, I don't know, fast roped in on the roof or whatever they did, and they're on the objective and they're on their way to secure the principal and his wife, and then there's a mishap, right? Something stupid happens, and something dumb like, a guy falls over the edge of the building, or something dumb, right? Or guys get pinned down and they're in their decisive engagement, on the wherever they were, I'm just gonna say a rooftop because that's probably where they exfilled from. So things could have went really bad really fast. However, it didn't. It sounds like it almost went flawless. I do understand there were some WIAs, some wounded, but no, definitely no KIAs. And from the reporting, from what they're willing to tell us anyway, sounds like one aircraft took some hits, but it didn't stop it. So that's pretty damn good. And so I can see where Trump and Hegseth and many others said, you know what, we cannot screw this up. We screw this up.
Yeah,
We'll never live it down. The whole Biden bullshit in Kabul, will be resurrected and it'll be a lot of finger pointing and boo boo shit. So there was a lot riding on this. And, hats off to Trump and Hegseth and all those in his staff that gave the wink and nod, said, let's do this. It takes balls to do something like that, big balls. And man, I couldn't be more proud to be a soldier right now, or American veteran. In fact, my wife just now came in and was talking about it here in Indonesia. It's all the rage. Everybody's like, holy shit, did you see what the Americans did? That's the kind of leadership we
that's
need. They're talking about it in a positive way, you know. They're not running around pissing and moaning and going, oh my God, that's so wrong. No, they're like, wow, and so that's pretty freaking, that says a lot. And but like I said, this it didn't surprise me sent the unit in because you can't screw this one. The whole thing with Osama bin Laden, there's another story behind that. It had to do with various types of metrics, and other op tempos and things like that. That's why the unit did not take that mission. From what I understand, they turned it down because they didn't want to waste a lot of assets on a potential target, right? It got to the point in Afghanistan, I remember, where there were so many assets committed, helicopters every night, aircraft, close air support. You had multiple operations. You could have 20, 30 operations going on simultaneously in one night, right? So, someone had to make a decision who gets what aircraft, what missions get priority, and so and they did have a way of measuring that and going, okay, if it meets this threshold, then it's a go. But apparently, from what I understand, that Osama bin Laden didn't meet the threshold to go on that target. It was kind of like, maybe not. They lucked out. They hit jackpot, so to speak. But anyways, um, again, just an amazing night, man. And I have to, think back to December 20th, 1989, when we went in the Modelo prison, and we were in and out of there in 6 minutes. 6 minutes, dude. We flew into a hornet's nest, and I'll never forget that night. And we went in and laid waste, got the principal out unscathed. We didn't lose one man. We had wounded, of course. We lost a couple of helicopters, but at the end of the day, it was a successful operation. And I mean, to go into, to run into the freaking jaws of death and snatch a person from from the jaws and run away with it. That's pretty daring. The unit can now take credit for at least a couple of very successful operations on probably some of the most difficult operations that you can imagine. And yeah, it's that's and that put Trump in the history books for sure. That put the unit right up there again. Like, you know what? When you need shit done right and you can't have any fucking mistakes, you know who to call. That doesn't mean that the unit couldn't fuck up down the road. And shit happens sometimes. But when all that money goes into an organization like that, the government and American people expect, results. They expect professionalism. They expect the job to get done. And this is probably one of the best investments our country has ever made, at least when it comes to a national defense, is investing in that organization. I mean, when I was there, you know, uh, I didn't really, I mean, I appreciated where I was and I appreciated what we were doing. And I always tell people when I look back, I'd have done that job for free, except I needed to feed the family and put gas in my car just to get to work. But honestly, that's one of those jobs I would have done for free every day for shits and giggles, you know. And I was telling a guy yesterday, I would look forward to going to work in the morning because I knew the whole day is going to be an action-packed day, just doing some really cool stuff, some dangerous stuff, some fun stuff, some exciting stuff. I'm going to learn something. And then I drive home at night going, man, that was like the best sex ever. Can't wait to
Yeah.
do it again tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, uh, pretty amazing. And the other thing that's funny too is, again, I was talking to my wife right before we started chatting here. And the other thing everybody's laughing about, at least in this part of the world, is how the Chinese and the Russians basically they lost. None of their defensive
Oh yeah.
systems, they all failed, right? The Cubans all got killed trying to protect them. It was a total fail by the Chinese and the Russians and into the Cubans. And I mean, what a statement that is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, a few right in your face. We flew right past your radars and your surface to air missiles. We bypassed everything and still went in and got the mission done. That's fucking, yeah. That's got to be problematic for them. And their confidence going, holy shit, our shit didn't even work against the Americans. Yeah, behold.
I didn't even think about that. That's also, yeah, that's like a multi-level flex on, right? Because there is, regardless of opinions on Ukraine, just neutrality, some people are like, well, America can't even win. And it's like, they're not giving them everything. You do kind of have that, is China a paper dragon or is it legit? And whatever, I can't speak on that. But there is some, nuts to the wall. This was like, this was it. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't, kind of get to see that. And then the whole world gets to see that. And as much as that may sound simple or that's propaganda, like, as advanced as we are technologically or as, massive as nation states are, like, we are still human. We are really still like for the most part, we're all high schoolers. That matters when you punch someone's fucking face out. You can say it doesn't, man. I just finished a book on the space shuttle and the first flight and it landing and it going crazy. Like you were talking about, people all over the world were like, man, the Soviets are talking about their new Mach 3 interceptor. And it's like, dude, the Americans just flew a fucking plane into orbit and it came down at Mach 23 and landed. And they're like, motherfucker. Like, there is kind of that. And you do need that. Like, you can call
Yeah,
whatever you want, man. It's like, why are the 90s so iconic? Because you were exporting Michael Jordan. Like, there is a lot of value to that. And then not only about what you were saying about, the American people pay for it. I live in an apartment building that it's average, but they take care of everything, and I pay out the ass for it. The toilet was clogged like a month ago. They came up on 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and put in a new toilet. I was like, what the fuck? Like, you do. So it's in our own hemisphere, and it isn't. Well, why are we in Vietnam? Well, why did that guy just die in Iraq 20 years after 9/11? This is, hey, you're sending fentanyl, you're killing 300,000 Americans a year. We're going to send in the A team. And we're not even, it'd be one thing if we went and shot the guy in the face. No, we took him. We took your president. That
and his
is,
wife.
and that is like the biggest, like, okay, if you wanted to just kill him, sure, hit him with a JDAM. You want to go in and do it in his face? Okay, Bin Laden style. Okay. You went in and stole the president. That is such like, they got cucked, And it's like,
Yeah.
it's all about oil. And yeah, there's multiple things. There's oil. It's denying the Russians and the Chinese, place in our hemisphere. Man, that is also like, hey, you're sending fentanyl here. We just stole your president. That's pride, man. That's morale. And that's a very real thing. And it's,
Has that ever happened in history? I don't know that's ever happened. Has
I,
anybody ever
it
kidnapped
it dawned on
a
me the other
president?
night, like 12 hours later, it's all going over on Twitter. And I was sitting there playing video games. And I just started thinking, like, wait, like, wait, this isn't some third world. Like, he just stole a president, and I was just
And
thinking,
his wife.
I was like, holy shit! And the more I'm thinking about it, you stole the president. That that's never happened. Like
I know, right? That's never happened.
ever.
That's what a statement that is in of itself, you know. Um, this, like I said, this put Trump down in history. Right now, he's the only president that basically sent his his military into another country just to kidnap the president and his wife and bring him back for trial. That's just unbelievable, man. But again, that speaks volume to, the the capabilities that the Americans have. I mean, for example, they were able to, from what I understand, again, I'm not privy to classified information, nothing like that, but from what I gather, it sounds like they employed a lot of different strategies, techniques. For example, I don't know what to call it. I can't call it anything but pixie dust. They sprinkle some kind of pixie dust on generating systems, and took out some of the
Oh,
power systems. You know, just stuff like that, jamming systems. It's just, and then of course all the cyber stuff that they did and deactivated everything. I mean, it was a multi-pronged, multi-capability type of assault, man, and it's just amazing, man. Just shows you what we don't know, and think right now the Russians, the Chinese are sitting back, scratching their and hitting their head, going, "What in the fuck just happened? And how do they do that? What do they have that we don't have? How do they pull that shit off? That they've got to be thinking that right now." And to the other point, you said something a minute ago about Ukraine. Look, we're not fighting in Ukraine. I mean, we got dudes over there, but as a government, we're not actually directly fighting the fucking Russians. And I don't think Trump even wants to fight anybody in a decisive engagement. I think he likes the idea of just going in and kicking people in the balls and then snatching them and their wife out, and that's it, getting over with, and I'm good with that. We don't need a protracted war. But he did what needed to be done. He did the right thing, and I know and you got all the chuckleheads out there. Oh, it's about the oil. Well, you know what? Think about it. It is about the oil, but you know what? Put it in context. By the way, the Americans paid for all the oil refineries, the entire oil infrastructure Venezuela uses to produce oil, including the American companies. We paid for all that shit. And then these jackasses said, no, now we're taking this stuff. We're taking the oil we're using the equipment that you sold us or gave us, and we're going to use that to export it to your enemies like, oh, yeah, Russia, China, Iran. So Trump was right. You know what? We built the infrastructure. We built the capability. We had a deal. You reneged on it. Shit, we're taking it all back, including the oil. The other thing that nobody's really talking about, which is of interest to me because of what I do here, is how much oil gold they have. Holy shit.
gold and
I
silver.
mean,
Yeah.
they got a lot of gold, man. But I mean, it's a jackpot, and I have a feeling that for us, I think Trump just maybe actually in a lot of ways saved us a lot of grief down the road because the Russians were there, the Chinese were there, the Iranians were there, the Cubans were there, and it was becoming a hornet's nest that we would have had to probably deal with at some point or another. And I think Trump was right. Let's just deal with it now, then rather than wait till later, just like the Iranians. So again, I couldn't be happier or prouder to be an American right now. For the first time after several years of that other chucklehead Biden, I was an embarrassment, but now I feel like, damn, we're back. Finally, we got someone who's got some balls. We got a leader, a real leader, and we've got a capable military again. Again, thank God for Hegseth. Thank for God for the policy changes they made, and going, even calling the Department of War, it just shows you a whole different mindset, and they got it right. And be damned with the liberals and all the crybabies out there. Here's the other amazing thing, man, is and you got all these movements out there. Remember the No King movement? Well, now they're like supporting a freaking king, like they were
Except for
against the
some
No.
kings.
I know, right? So Maduro, the king's okay, good. He's oppressed his people. Yeah, the irony of it all, man, is thank God that these people are irrelevant and they're becoming more and more irrelevant. Because if we left it up to them, there will be no America left. And I still kind of wonder if we're going to make it out of this intact. As a country. God forbid Democrats get in charge again, then for sure it's over. I don't know if we'll ever recover. Now that we have uncovered and revealed all the crap that they've been doing, the voter fraud and, all the immigration and all the trouble we have now is because the Democrats, they did this on purpose. Hopefully Trump can purge it and fix it, and we can get back to being a sovereign American country, man, that does stand for those things that, liberty and justice for all and all the things that, America was founded on. So, but like I said, from what I'm getting around here, many people around the world are cheering. They're actually really happy about this. They're like, wow, you know, they're actually very positive about it. The only people who are pissing their pants and pissing and moaning are the Democrats, the liberals. Nobody else is complaining. The Venezuelans seem to be pretty happy now that we've given them a chance to freedom again, a chance back to prosperity. And out from under the thumb of this oppressor. It's just like Panama. That was the same problem there. You got a despot and that's in charge, and he's oppressing his people. He's running drugs. He's doing shady shit, and we removed him. Saddam Hussein was another guy. Everybody keeps going, oh, we just went in Iraq for the oil. I will say this, you know what? Forget why we went in there. When I was in there, I realized, man, we're here for a good reason because I saw what this guy, Saddam Hussein and his sons and his cronies did to the Iraqi people. It was
I'm like,
horrible shit that he was doing to them,
his
right?
sons,
So,
yeah, Uday and
yeah,
Hussein
yeah. Uday
or
Qusay, right?
Hussein.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were, they were some of the worst of the worst. I went to one of their former sex palaces, right? After we annihilated everything. And the shit that went on there, these guys would literally go, hey, we're going to have a big party tonight, dudes. And they'd send their guys out in freaking roving patrols and pick up the hottest chicks they could find on the street, married or not. They didn't give a shit. And guess what? You're getting in the car and you're going to go here and you're gonna have fun with us, whether you want to or not, dude. And they did some really terrible things to people over there. I can tell you a lot of ugly stories about how they were the Iraqi citizenry was just, oh my God, man, so how abusive and badly they were treated and killed and murdered. So, when people can have their opinion about, Iraq and gold, oil, there was WMD there. I can tell you that. I got a letter from the Department of Defense that says I was exposed. And if I start doing weird shit like twitching or something, I need to go to VA and get looked at. But, you know, nonetheless, sometimes doing the right thing is just helping people, man. And they can't help themselves anymore. And that's what I think we did with just now with Venezuela. I feel like we did that in Iraq. For sure, we did that in Panama. Um, and I'm not so naive to believe that we don't have an agenda also, you know. Of course we do, right? But it 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 is what it is, And so yeah, Trump's telling them, hey, we're going to run your country until we can find someone that can take the driver's seat and steer this thing in a straight line. In the meantime, we're going to run this thing. Well, fine. At least we're not letting the Russians and Chinese and Iranians run this thing, because it's not going to work out well for us. So good stuff, man. Pretty exciting stuff, And they got it right. Got it really. I don't know how anybody could do it any better, honestly. Um, I don't know how anybody could do it better. So,
It- a couple comments, and the first is they're bad people. Okay, let's just play devil's advocate. You could say, yeah, sure, we liberated Iraq, but like that's not our job. It's not our response. Fair enough. But if you don't pitch it as that's why we were doing it, but rather a side of, let's take you find some dude and it's the cops shot him 40 times and maybe he wasn't reaching. And then you find his background. It's like, hey man, this guy's been arrested 30 times for like raping kids. Like does it make an execution right? Well, for me, I say yes, but no, but don't necessarily. You shouldn't grieve this guy. And the same thing is like, is that why we went into Iraq to stop Uday and Qusay? No, but man, they had cages where they fed women to lions. There's stories about how their favorite thing, like their fetish, was showing up at weddings, at the wedding, decapitating the husband and then raping the wife at the service.
Yeah,
No, that's not why we went in there. I'm not stupid, but at the same time, like, don't don't fucking grieve. And the second thing is there an agenda? Yes. And how do you think the world works? And
exactly.
I'm not saying it, I've always said ideally there'd be no hunger or starvation. We'd all hold hands. Yeah, 100%. I'm not getting off on this. How do you think the world works? What do you think domination is? What do you think force projection is? Do you think if we just stop that there won't be a new manager? What do you think
Yeah,
China is going to do? What do you think Russia is going? Does that mean we are perfect? Absolutely not. The history of the world. This isn't it's the history of the world
yeah,
is dominance. It's what it is. If we don't do this here, who do you think's coming in? What do you think it is? And again, yeah, it sucks. It also sucks that, you got dogs don't live as long as us. Like I'm with you. Yeah, there's a lot of problems in the, I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry, but what do you think this how do you think the world works? Like genuinely, what we're there for oil. What do you think how do you think the world works? Do you think China is hanging out with Venezuela because they just love the climate? What do you think it is? And if you can then take that into your decision making, okay, so there is force projection, there are natural resources. What is the least worst way to do this? I'll take what is it, a 3 minute and 36 minute raid over a 20-year occupation. How do you it's how do you think the world works? It's not going to be ideal, but it's in our hemisphere. It's in and out. There's a pride aspect to it, and there's also a feeling of like, there's excuse me, there's an absence of a feeling of like, why did we just bury 58,000 Americans from Vietnam? What what did we get? There isn't that, and it's like, hey man, like grow up,
yeah,
grow up. And if we don't do that, China just keeps building there. How
exactly.
far down the road can you no longer nullify this with a Delta Force raid? At some point, you're going to need 5, 10. At a certain point, you're going to need 100. At a certain point, you're going to have to start doing a lot of airstrikes. At a certain point, you're going to need boots on the ground. At a certain point, it escalates. How do you think it works, man? And it's just like, yes, there's a what it's grand strategy. It's what it is, man. Grow up. So that's my
Yeah.
that's my soapbox.
No,
It's like
no, but you're, to your point, so everybody thinks, there's a utopia out there and we can all live in utopia. There's no
we
such
live in it.
thing.
This is the closest it gets.
This is as good as it's going to get. And it ain't great, but it's as good as it's going to get. The reality is since, since recorded history, men have fought over 12,000 wars, um, all around the planet. And we have enslaved each other. We have we have conquered other nations. We have done horrible and terrible things to other human beings. And I say we, I mean all of us, all humans, okay, without exception. Everybody has been a savage. Um, there's what's his name? I think it was Arthur Schopenhauer or Desmond. No, anyways, he quoted the term "man is a warring ape," and it's so true. There is no utopia. There will be no utopia. It's just in our nature. We are a warring ape, so to speak. We are always going to fight, and we're always going to fight if there's three things that we all desire. And those three things, we've talked about this before. I'm just
Yeah.
going to say it again. I'm going to be crass about it. I don't give a shit. At the end of the day, we're looking for three things: money and power. Those are interchangeable. You got money, you got power, you get money. And the third thing is pussy. I hate to say it that way, but it's all about procreation. It's all about procreating our own kind.
It's
And that's what it's always about. Is those are the three things that drive men to war. And when I say procreation, it's also to protect our own. right? Our own tribe, our own people. And we are different. I hate when people always say, oh, we're all equal, all the same. No, we're not all equal. We're not all the same. That's okay. That doesn't mean that we're lesser than anybody else. It just means that we're different. But nonetheless, everybody's tribal to some degree or another. Take it from a guy that's traveled to, lived in, or worked in over 101 countries. I've lived all around the world. I've traveled all around the world. I've been immersed in a lot of different cultures. And if you think America's bad, shit, you ought to move abroad for a little while, and I'll give you some places you can go check out, and you tell me how great that is. We've got it pretty good in our country, and like I said, tribalism's real. You know, I'll tell you, and I'll just say it. I don't give a shit, man. I lived in Hong Kong for a while. The Chinese are very pro-Chinese and very anti everybody else, man. They don't like anybody else,
Which is
and
fine.
right. And so, yeah, exactly. That's because that's what they are. They're very what's called ethnocentric. Okay. So what? That is what it is, right? And I get it. And we are no different, whether we're white or black or Mexican or Hispanic or whatever the fuck ever, man. Tribalism's a real thing. We're all proud of our culture. We're all proud of our heritage. And that's what the world is. There will always be war. There will always be people vying for more power and more resources, because that's what you do when you look out for your family and your tribe. You're trying to basically raise their status, raise their station in the world, right? For why? So that we can secure a future and continue to procreate our kind. It's survival. I mean, hell, at one point there was like 23 or 26 species of human beings. We duked it out with the Neanderthals, the Denisovans. There were many others that were living at the same time we were. And somehow we either raped them out of existence, or we killed them, or we just outperformed them, you know? But that's just, that's just how it is. Even we talk about the United States, and and I like it when all these clowns always say, it's stolen land. We stole it from, yeah, stole it from who? From the Indians. What Indians? Right? All the Indians, American Indians were fighting each other. They
We're
were
all
raping each other, killing
fucking
each other.
killing each other to no
They were
end.
they were savage, man. And so, they did the same thing. Okay. So it's just what it is. And, even the Europeans, we did it, right? The Europeans were, whether it's the Italians, the Romans, the Germans, the Gauls, whatever, everybody's kicking everybody's ass and taking their shit. It's what we do. And it may sound distasteful and you don't have to like it, but that's the reality. And when you can accept reality, and you can accept the fact that this is the world we live in, this is, unfortunately, this is the human condition. You have a choice. You have to either live with it and deal with it and cope with it, or where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Can you afford a little island for yourself and just hang out there till you die? No. This is the world we live in. And but anyways, kind of getting off on a little bit of
No,
tangent there, but
no, no,
you know,
no, it's not at all because it's, when I was saying all of human history, and we'll put a pin in human history and say agricultural revolution. Okay. And then, that's 10,000 years ago. So let's bump it up an order of magnitude and go to 100,000. It's warring bands of Homo sapiens, Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, Denisovians, all that shit. Guess what they were doing? And then, okay, all right, well, I think I don't even like humans then. Let's stretch it back another of order of magnitude. Actually, let's do three more orders of magnitude. So from 100,000 years, we'll multiply it by 10 times through. So times 10 is a million, times 10 is 10 million, times 10 is, we'll go back 100 million. What do you think the dinosaurs were doing? Why do you think they
well,
dominated the world? It's just, this is biological. It really
yeah.
is. It's the fabric of our reality. And I would argue then, if at our core, the only reason the dinosaurs were only after power and pussies, because money didn't exist. That's the only fucking reason, right? Have
I
you
know.
studies where they give chimps like a form of currency? The first thing they start doing,
I know, right?
prostitution, harems. Okay, okay. So at a certain point, you have to go, this is what we are. How do we do it? And I would say a 3-minute raid is a lot better than what it normally is, which is
Yeah.
kill the entire population. Genghis Khan,
Exactly.
what do you think it is? And if, well, some didn't kill. Okay, what they did was rape the entire population. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a grow up
We'll
thing.
never be able to satisfy everybody. At the end of the day, I think, Trump did what the people that voted for him expected, which was a majority of the population. They got what they voted for, and he's doing exactly what we want him to do. And and the opposition, they're a bunch of losers. They're not very intelligent, and they're not intelligent, even those with degrees, at PhDs and others. I always quote Elon Musk on this one when he says you can buy
Yeah,
an education, but you can't buy intelligence. He's so right. There's some really stupid people out there, man, that have high educations, and we see them every day, So we're dealing with, the useful idiots, and fortunately, we're outnumbering them, and we have more power than them. But who knows how long that'll last, right? But anyways, I think Trump did the right thing. I'm pretty happy about it. I'm happy about, the unit and its performance. Like I said, I didn't expect anything less, and kind of surprised that they actually came out and announced,
me
where's the
too.
Delta Force, right? But you know what? Honestly, they are the quiet professionals, and they'll probably never, nobody will probably come out and write a book about it. But I think what will happen at some point down the road, that whole raid will get declassified to some degree, just like Modelo Prison, and Discovery and History Channel made a series, a documentary on it. I think that's worth I think down the road you'll see that happening because as long as we're not giving up tactics, techniques, procedures, um, I think Americans should know the story because it's a source of pride
Well,
to know
yes.
that that we've got a military unit that's like kicks ass, like serious ass. That's a great morale booster for our country, for our military. And I think people need to hear the story. And not only that,
Yes.
it should scare the shit out of our adversaries. Like, holy cow, man. A small band of dudes like that can fucking go in and fuck something up like this. Just imagine what a bigger army can do if they really freaking, they really focused on destroying us. So I think it's great, man, and I can't wait to hear. Yeah, I can't wait to see the movie. But anyways, again, hats off to these guys that they did well, and I hope they're celebrating. But you know what? If I think when I look back in time, every time we did something really cool like that, there was no celebration. It was back to business. I really remember it was back to business. It was okay, mission accomplished, fucking rearm, refit, fuck, clean your shit, refocus, next mission. And there was no celebration. We never had a celebration that I can remember where, back in the unit, it's like, okay, we can decompress and fucking let's have some beers and have fun. And that never happened, man. Not that I remember. And maybe it's doing happening now, but at that time it never happened. It's not like the movies, It was basically back to business and fucking refocus, for the next fucking mission, the next mission. And that says a lot again about, I remember one time we came back from an op and one of the commanders, it was a pretty very successful operation. Actually, it wasn't even my squadron that executed it. It was another squadron that did it, but for sure, guys should have gotten awards, like big time awards, like valorous, citations and things like that. And I remember the commander said, "Nah, for what?" He goes, "Firemen don't expect a fucking reward for putting out a goddamn fire. So what the fuck you expect a reward for? An award for, right?" And so that was the mindset. That was really the fucking mindset. It wasn't about the fucking medals and shit like that. And and probably, guys are getting awards and medals for sure, no doubt. Because if they don't, how they're going to compete with other guys in their MOS in the military for promotions and things like that. So you got to take care of every soldier and give him what he deserves. But I do remember, I remember when after Modelo Prison, we were all nominated for Silver Stars, and by the commander, and as a group, we were like, no, we don't deserve. We don't deserve that, sir. Kind of the same attitude. We're firemen to put out the fire. We don't deserve a fucking or an award, right? That was our attitude. And the commander's like, no, it's the right thing to do. He's a Vietnam veteran, and he had been decorated with a Silver Star in Vietnam. And he goes, no, you guys, he goes, this is right up there with everything I've ever done in Vietnam. And we ended up basically pushing back and said, nah, no, it's too much. And we ended up getting Bronze Stars with V devices for that operation. And then I remember going down to clothing sales. It wasn't actually clothing sales. It was one of the pawn shops down Yadkin Road, Fort Bragg, Fayetteville. And I walk in and I'm going to buy my new ribbon for my Bronze Star. And I'll be damned. There's three chaplains, all three of them buying their ribbons for their Bronze Stars. I'm like, what the fuck did you guys do to get a fucking Bronze Star? Because I just fucking helped save a fucking guy's life. And so I was kind of taken aback by that a little bit. But then again, who cares, right?
Yeah.
I've gotten medals and other organizations that I work for, secret organizations, and and this is how it fucking works. Hey, come on in here. We're giving you this award for exemplary performance, and there's a citation laying on the fucking table. You get to fucking read it, and they go, "Okay, did you read it? Yeah." They close it up and fucking lock it up, and you never get to keep it. You don't get to take it home. I've gotten awards and citations for shit that I did, and I don't
Yeah.
even remember what it was. In fact, I got to read it real quick and I didn't get to absorb it. They close up and it fucking away it goes. It's not about the awards. It's not about, the accolades that come with it. That's why I said in the beginning, I would have done the job for free, but I got to put gas in my
Yeah.
car and feed the old lady, right? So feed the kids.
I was,
But
I was gonna say those are almost cooler awards that you can't tell anyone. Right? I'm like Billy Wall or some shit. But yeah,
yeah,
man,
yeah,
it's um you gotta wrap it up. I got another show in a minute, but I was gonna say like and above all else, man, like how do you think recruitment works? Is you see something hardcore like that, right?
yeah, yeah,
That the Apollo astronauts, it wasn't a big paycheck. They were just like, I want to be the best, and here's a big shocker, and they love the country. Their proudest moment is pulling that fucking flag out. Like
yeah,
that is what this country is. Like, you have to be proud, man. You have to just. That's what makes it so great is that I always say this to like my European friends, my Eurofags. I'm always like, you guys don't know what it's like to genuinely love your country and to know that it's better. It is,
yeah,
you can call it whatever you want, man. It's fucking great. I love this
yeah.
country so much. It really is. So, but we got to wrap it. Dale, thank you for your
All right,
time. I'll
brother.
text it to you. All the links are in the description. As always, thank you for your time, man. You're the best. And till next time, dude. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Hey guys, real quick, you guys know Basil Baz, ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. I just did a fundraiser with them the other day, and I'm going to put this on to every episode I do. They are special forces veterans who physically rescue trafficked children. They have since 1993. They have a 100% success rate. They do not take salaries. They all have day jobs, and they literally rescue sex trafficked children. Donations to them are a tax write-off. I get nothing from them, and they have not asked me to put this on. I've included this little clip on episodes for the last year or so, and I'm just re-recording it because I just got to meet him just 2 days ago for future. It's November 25th, 2025, but this will be on every episode now for the next year. And there is nothing better you can do with your money. Um, if you can support them for even $5, please do that. It is, they truly are doing the Lord's work, and I think we all have an obligation to do that. Thank you so much.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a blue room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup, mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.